Welcome to Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we delve into the untold stories and experiences surrounding abortion. Stories often missing from everyday conversations, media reports, and even other podcast interviews. I'm your host, Melissa Ohden, the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. As the author of You Carried Me, A Daughter's Memoir, and Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, I've had the privilege of hearing the most powerful stories from some of the most resilient and courageous individuals. These stories and these people have profoundly transformed my life, and I believe they have the power to transform yours as well. Together, we will amplify these voices, share the truths that they illuminate, and challenge our culture to recognize what life is truly like beyond abortion. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Life Beyond Abortion, the episodes that we get to really delve through the lies, the misinformation, the voices that often are unheard in our culture related to abortion and its impact. Today's episode is one that I think you really need to lean into. You know, we hear a lot in our culture about the life of a mother or a baby who is given a prenatal diagnosis. And the question always is, isn't abortion the best option, the most compassionate option? And we seldom hear the voices of people who can tell us what life is really like beyond abortion. So today I get the great opportunity for you to hear from someone who very distinctly knows about life beyond abortion. My friend Rachel Guy, a pro-life advocate. Rachel, thank you for joining me for this episode.
Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all that you do. It is such a blessing.
Well, people may recognize your name. They may have, seen or heard you on Fox News before. You have a very powerful voice when it comes to how abortion is offered to women in a time of crisis and really its impact on the baby. And so I just kind of want to jump right in. What is your firsthand experience about how abortion can threaten a baby's life and even the life of the mother?
That is such a thoughtful question. I would really say, just personally regarding abortion, it really impacts me because 27 years ago, 3 doctors insisted and begged my parents to abort me. They thought that I might have a chromosomal abnormality not compatible with life. They told my parents um, just that I would be blind, that I would be deaf, that I would have mental struggles. And my parents refused to abort me. And what I love about this story, and the Lord provided 3 doctors who new doctors at a new hospital who fought for my life. And what I love and I cherish is that my parents, they didn't fight for me, nor did the new doctors fight for me because they thought I would live long, because they thought I would be healthy. They fought for me because they knew I was a person made in the image of God, worthy to be protected, and that whether I was inside the womb, whether I was outside the womb, whether I was healthy, whether I was sick, whether I lived 5 minutes in the womb or 5 minutes outside, that I was a person worthy to be fought for. And so I was born at 26 weeks at 1 pound, 2 ounces, and I was in the NICU for 5.5 months. And just growing up, I'd always known this story, bits and pieces that were appropriate to share at the age that I was. But I would say when I was 14 years old, the Lord really wanted this story not just to be a part of my head, to be a part of my heart. And it was at around, I think, December 12th, maybe 11th or 12th. I started writing a letter to the doctors who told my parents to abort me. And I didn't know what I would say. I didn't know how long the letter would be, but I knew that God wanted me to write it. And something that I love about the Lord is that when He asks us to do something, whatever that step of faith may be, He doesn't expect us to know the next step. He simply expects us to trust Him. And so I wrote this letter. I didn't know, of course, what I would say, anything about it. I just I was just praying. I was in the Word, and the Lord was faithful. And He gave me really three messages. I wanted to share the gospel with these doctors because I wanted them to know the hope and forgiveness found through Jesus Christ. I wanted these doctors to know that He had a better plan for them, that He wanted to redeem them, that He wanted to make them new. Also, I shared with them that I forgave them, and I can only do that through the Lord. And lastly, I asked them to use their power to fight for life and not to harm life. So I sent the letter off, no expectation of getting any response back. But by God's mercy and grace, I got two handwritten notes in the mail. I think they were both sent from their home addresses. And the first physician, he said he was thankful that I was alive. He didn't think that I would live, and he would like to meet me one day. Now, all of this happened in another state, so that hasn't happened yet, but I would love to meet him. Another physician, she said, she didn't think that I would live and that she was thankful that I was alive. And when I think about this story, I kind of think about the summary of the Bible verse, Genesis 50:20. In summary, it's talking about the story of Joseph, and in summary it says, "What man meant for evil, God used for good for the saving of many lives." And I think that God is a God of redemption. There's no situation that He doesn't already have a plan of how He desires to redeem it, of how He desires to make it new, to make it whole, to bring life when the enemy meant death, to bring life from it. And so just I thank God that He gave me parents who saw my worth, who saw that whatever the diagnosis was, that my value wasn't defined by that I didn't automatically become my diagnosis. I was still the same person, made in God's image, worthy to be fought for.
Right. You were Rachel, no matter what, right? No matter what,
Mhm. Mhm.
no matter the fear, no matter, the lack of any quote unquote guarantee. Yeah, your parents knew you just as God knew you, just as God created you. I'm always struck by similarities in all of our stories, right? As someone like me who was aborted and survived it, and you who were targeted by those medical professionals who, I have no doubt thought that they were doing the right thing, the compassionate thing, thinking that there was no way you were going to survive.
Yeah.
And that somehow maybe you were going to endanger your mom's health. All those things. I we have similarities, right? To be 14 years old and know that God is doing something in our life that is
Yes.
his story, right? And it is something that, yes, is meaningful and impactful to us personally, but also gives us this opportunity to offer that redemption and the
Amen.
restoration to the other people who are parts of our story. So I'm invested in this part of your story, having lived out similar years. So I gotta ask, what was it like to get those letters from those physicians? And now that you are at the point in your life that you are, has anything changed in the way you feel about those letters, or is it magnified?
That's a thoughtful question. Honestly, I was so in shock that they sent letters. I think I was humbly taken aback, just that they would respond. Um, Really, for me, like, just currently, when I receive those letters and still now, my heart is really just to see those physicians just so understand the love that the Lord has for them, that He wants to see them made new and made whole. Um, and so honestly, I mean, just what like I think kind of like my immediate response when I received the letters like is that I mean just I was really just humbly just in shock that they would respond. I was humbled just by their kindness and what they said. Um, I something I think is beautiful looking back on it is that I think that their letters provided an opportunity to have potential open dialogue with them. And I just see, I just I don't know what that means, what that will lead to, but I think it's really interesting. Like just that the Lord would even prompt them to respond. So yeah, a lot of emotions.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those key takeaways as I reflect on your life and mine is, those doctors, as good intentioned as they may have been, they missed the mark. And they didn't see you, right? They didn't see you the way that your mom and dad and your grandmother saw you. And so there is something really powerful when they respond to your letter. You feel seen, right? Maybe
Yeah.
for the first
Yeah.
time by them.
Yes, 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 yes. Um and just along those lines, just my heart too is that I hope, well, and also something, when I wrote the letter to them, I never said, like if their diagnosis, like that they deemed that I had was correct or not, just because I didn't want them, like just just to automatically, almost like discount the value that I have. And I think that, uh, a part of me wonders if them responding almost made them kind of have to rethink what they were processing in that moment when they told my parents to abort me. Um, something I think about is that one of the doctors, he said that in all of his years of practice, every single parent had aborted. And when I think about, our situation, I was that one face to that doctor who was still alive, who was here to be almost a witness and a voice and a testament, not only to the value that God gave me, but to the value of those countless children that he never got to see, those precious children, to see where they would be today, or or, or even if they would have passed inside the womb. He never had an opportunity outside of my life to see the power of choosing life, the power of saying yes to God and seeing where that leads. And so part of me kind of wonders if that's why he even wanted to meet me. I don't know. Maybe just for him, just knowing that I survived, knowing that I was alive. A part of me wonders if it really impacted him just to see the humanity of that very child that he wanted to see dead. And also, I mean, just that he was told in medical school, this is what is best. So,
Yeah, and I think it's difficult when anyone is facing the circumstances that your mom was facing. And your mom and I have talked about this a lot. I've walked in, slightly different shoes as a mother, staring down Ava having health issues and advocating for her both in the womb and outside of the womb. I'm going to advocate for
yeah,
that kid
amen.
her entire life. And I've had a medical professional. I mean, I remember a hospitalist after a month stay in the hospital for complications after surgery when she was about 3 months old. And they were trying to do all sorts of invasive things. And I kept saying, "You're wrong. You're wrong.
Yep.
I'm going to seek another opinion. You don't get to just do what you want to do." And that hospitalist confronted me and said, nobody stands up to me like this. Nobody tells me. And I had just said, well, this changes with me. And I fought for Ava and I fought against something really invasive. And it was like the next day she had turned a corner and that doctor came in the room and she said, "I've never said this before, but you proved me wrong." And I thought, all right, Lord, right? Worth every struggle, right? Worth all the pain.
Absolutely.
But it takes one of us, right? One of us
Absolutely.
to live, one of us to survive, one of us to find our voice. And, I suspect you're like me. No matter what the outcome that we do or don't see from meetings with people, or whether that
Yep.
hospitalist would say she's sorry, or, you know, you were wrong, you proved me wrong, we have to believe in our heart that doing whatever it is we feel called to do, standing up for someone, standing up against someone, advocating, sending a letter, we have to believe in our hearts that God is going to make good with it, whether we see it or not.
Amen, amen. And it's something I just love that you said that. And something I ponder is I think to myself, I think, and I probably can guarantee that because you stood up for your precious Ava, I think it will make, maybe, hopefully, and I'm guessing so, that physician really want to even more so hear the parents and be willing to listen to them and be willing to say, you know what? That parent is truly the advocate for their child. And so just God bless you. God bless you for truly being that bold voice for your daughter, for standing up for her. So that, I mean, just that is inspirational.
Well, and I think that's the tough thing, right? Is and I know you know this because you are involved in so many parts of the pro-life movement. We are often kind of painted into a corner to say, "Oh, they only care about babies before they're born." Well, no. I mean, in reality, women are facing crisis during pregnancies, families and children, and women face crises afterwards, and
Yep.
they need
Yep.
advocates, they need
Yes.
information, they need support. And you distinctly were given parents who advocated for you. And what would you say to a woman like your mom who maybe has just been given a diagnosis for her preborn baby and she's scared?
That is a thoughtful question. I would say to a mother who she has found out that her child has an in utero diagnosis that there is hope, that this diagnosis may have come as a surprise to you, but it did not to God. And really rest in that and rest in that as something that will bring comfort. I would say to make sure that you have physicians that are fighting for your baby's life, that are valuing your child's life, that are not dismissing your child's life, that are really just wanting to go the extra mile to not only see that child, but to value that child and to care for that child. So I'd say make sure that if you're not in the hands of a pro-life doctor, you can leave. You can leave that physician's practice. You don't have to listen to that physician. If you've had a physician that said you need to abort, don't listen to them. Do not listen to them. It is such a false narrative that the medical community, many, throw at couples in crisis, claiming that somehow they need to or they should abort. The killing of a baby has no place in the medical field. The killing of a baby has no place in our society. And to think that the very field that's meant to see you as a patient, see your baby as a patient, that they would dismiss your child's life if that's the situation. Just do not listen. Maybe you have um maybe you have a precious child, they're in utero, they have a condition, but you have wonderful physicians. That is a gift. That is incredible. You stay with those physicians. I would say connect with different prenatal diagnosis ministries that will really walk alongside of you, help you to even more so be an advocate for your child, just inside of the womb, but also outside of the womb. Some of those groups are Be Not Afraid and Prenatal Partners for Life.
Thank you for sharing both of those. You know, I I think sometimes, I mean, first of all, when people are in crisis, it's hard to think your way out of the day to day,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
You're trying to keep your head above water. And
Mhm.
I have found that the more we're supported, we're surrounded by people who have resources who can support us emotionally. And even like from the community standpoint, having social, informal supports and formal supports, the more we're surrounded, the the more we can see hope, the more we can feel it rising, right? The more we feel empowered. We can question things, we can think through things. Ultimately, we can make different decisions.
Amen. 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 I love that you said that, and you said it. And I think that so oftentimes, just the medical field, for those that aren't pro-life, they don't know it, but they are really isolating those parents. They are not that they're not coming alongside of those parents. They're not even realizing that when you tell a couple to abort, that's not coming alongside of them or their baby. That is really, I mean, I would say, such a betrayal of the doctor patient relationship. Because truly, I mean, just what these couples need is they need a medical field that will say, we are here with you for the long haul. Whether your child is sick and doesn't live outside the womb, whether your child does, we are here for you, and we are not going to let go of your hand, and we are going to be that advocate for that baby.
I love that you shared that. Maybe you could remember who it was recently at the Celebrate Life conference. I think it might have been Dr. Brakalski used the word accompaniment. And I don't know if you'll remember it. I'll attribute it to Dr. B. Dr. B, if you tune in or
It
someone
was
else
him.
does, it sounds like something Dr. B would say. But but I found his use of that word so impactful. And that's what I hear you saying, Rachel, is right. Medical professionals should be accompanying the woman, the man, the father, the preborn baby, the family. They should be
Yep.
accompanying
Amen.
them on this journey, not saying, "Hey, I'm going to see you right where you're at and I'm going to hand you off." And not even like hand you off. I'm just going to tell you what you need to do
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to go away and I'm going to see the next patient. Accompaniment means seeing people, listening to them, finding out how to support them, and then being in the thick of it. And it doesn't mean that doctor would have been the only one to stand beside you and your mom that whole time, but they would have invited other people in to be the ones accompanying.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I think that when you acknowledge that child's diagnosis, but you're not seeing them through that lens of the diagnosis, it really gives the physician an opportunity to treat that child just really just as any other physician in any other field values and cherishes that patient in front of them. I mean, just, like, let's say that somebody's diagnosed with cancer. Where do they automatically become the cancer? No. Does the doctor say, well, you know, just end your life. There's nothing that can be done. No, they say it is terminal. We're going to walk with you. You can also cherish the time that you have. And I think that abortion robs parents of the really from the cherished time that they can have with that child. I think about a precious couple named Jenna Haley, and I'm forgetting her precious husband's name, but their little boy, Shane, he was diagnosed in utero with anencephaly. It's something that I love is that they did a bucket list for him. And so they knew he wouldn't live long outside the womb. They took him to Disney. They took him to different places to celebrate his life inside the womb. And I think that when the medical field loves the child in utero, it provides the family a comfort to not be overcome by the diagnosis that the child has, but to see the gift of time that they can have with that baby despite the diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean there is a tension that exists, right? Of the grief and the pain. And I mean, gosh, you and I could probably talk for hours about how abortion is sold as the solution to suffering. and
Yeah.
that somehow
Yeah.
it means that there's going to, you get to fast forward. You're not going to experience any suffering. You're not going to grieve your child.
Yeah.
And I've had friends who have, had children with significant health issues and live for only moments. And I think it's hard for people to sit in grief with other people.
I think that you're right. I think that you're so right. And I think that abortion is really that cop out for people for the medical field. Yeah, just to be able to say, well, it looks grim, just let it go, just abort the baby, try again. Yeah, and yeah, I mean just when and also just when, and this is a different um different type of a situation, but I think about, a woman or a man who they may be contemplating suicide and they are about to jump off a bridge. Does someone say, well, clearly your life is hard, jump off the bridge? Nope. They try to rescue them. And in my mind, I think that what happens is that, you know, just there is something that's causing that person to want to jump off the bridge who's contemplating suicide. What is the root of it? Well, maybe they're scared. Maybe they feel like they don't have support. Well, really what the medical field has done is they have they have really put a precious parent in a vulnerable situation, and they've said, I want you to jump off of this bridge. And it's not realizing that really accompanying them, walking with them, is the most loving act that you can do for that child and for that baby. And really realizing that grieving with somebody doesn't mean that we dismiss a situation for the hardship that it is, but it means that we walk with that person in that pain and in that grief.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you and I can have this conversation because again, I think this is what's missing in the everyday conversation about abortion and even when it comes to prenatal diagnosis, right? We see the headlines of, right, so and so needed to have an abortion because of this diagnosis and the laws did this and it impacted them that way.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, we're going, hey, man, I am sorry that this is happening, right? We would love to say, are you supported, right? Do you know that there are other resources
Yeah.
available,
That's it.
right? Are people accompanying you? All of those things. But instead, it becomes, right, this whole conversation about abortion being necessary. And then we continue to see the headlines. And, I'm curious what that's like for you, especially in today's world where, the health of the child becomes the talking point of why abortion is necessary.
That's a thoughtful question. I think that it really dismisses the root of what we need to be discussing and talking about, where it is almost viewing the child as the problem, the child as the one, really the one that if you could just get rid of that child with the diagnosis, you would feel better. You would be better. You would be whole. And I think that it's really dismissing that mother child bond and relationship that God has created. I mean, just, but there's a quote, mother bear for a purpose. And the whole really heart of a mother is to protect her child. And so I think that for society to spin this narrative that somehow almost having like self preservation from your child is so broken, is so j- just anti the message that we should be spreading.
Hmm. Yeah, it devalues the mother child bond and relationship and pits woman against child, right? We in the pro-life movement identify that it is very antithetical to
Yeah.
womanhood to pit a woman against a child. And, the word that comes to mind too, Rachel, as you're talking about what it's like to live
Mhm.
in this culture and see those messages, is it's dehumanizing, right? It
Mhm.
is dehumanizing to someone like you who had a health diagnosis in utero, spent time in the NICU, but was loved and is still loved wholeheartedly today and advocated for. Yeah, it is dehumanizing to become a talking point for abortion.
You so said it. You so said it, and it is. I mean, it is so tragic to think that you have individuals that instead of being seen as that precious child that they are inside of the womb, they have a health condition. Maybe they won't live long. Maybe their mother's life is at risk. To think that instead of our society saying, you deliver the baby early by C-section or induction of labor, you fight for that baby, is this ridiculous, ridiculous narrative that is just saying, just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't fight for that child. Don't see that child. I mean, it is tragic, and I think it's so interesting too. Whenever our society throws around this whole life with a mother argument, they never talk about the humanity of that baby inside the womb. They never mention that baby. They never talk about, you know, maybe this is a precious little one who his or her life may be at risk. Maybe the mother's life is at risk. What is that baby's name? It it's using the child, the most vulnerable, to spin their narrative, their false narrative that they want people to believe that somehow a woman killing her baby will save her life, which is ridiculous, false. It also makes abortion out to be seen as medical instead of what is abortion? Okay, abortion is the killing of a baby inside of the womb. That is the purpose of abortion. Abortion is not medical treatment. Uh, Abortion, the purpose is to kill that baby. And so I think it's just so interesting to me and tragic to me to think that we have taken something, the evil of abortion, the reality of what abortion is, the killing of a baby, and we have in our society made it out to be some medical solution. And instead of talking about that if a mother's life is at risk and a baby's, you induce labor, you deliver via C-section, which means you see both mother and baby as patients. You're fighting for both. You're not dismissing the child in claims of saving the woman's life. Um, I think too that, you know, when it comes to the field of OBGYN, well, why is the field of GYN necessary? What does it do? What helps a woman? Well, when you have OB, that switches because you have two patients. And so really to see our society understand that this is a baby that needs to be fought for, this is a mother that needs to be fought for, and that is done through delivering the child, through seeing the child goes to the NICU and being cared for. But it doesn't mean that we're going to kill a baby to, quote, save the life of a mother. That's just ridiculous.
Man,
That's just
a little
ridiculous.
louder for the people in the back. I mean, I hope that people take that and they play it on repeat, because that is also the missing piece in the everyday conversation, isn't it? Of what about the health of the mother? What if, right, Rachel's life was endangering Suzanne's life? They would have induced labor
Yep.
or done a C-section, and sadly, if one of you would have lost your life, it would have been a tragedy. But the intent was to attempt to save both of you.
Yes, and it's something that I just find so just funny and curious and interesting. Funny is the wrong word,
Right?
but just
Ironic,
yeah,
right?
yeah, ironic is So one of the doctors, and my mom went in for her ultrasound at 22 weeks, found something the technician found something concerning. Went, grabbed the doctor in the practice. The doctor said, "You need to abort. You're going to die. Your baby's going to die." What I find so interesting. My mother said, "We won't abort." She said, "Fine, come back in 2 weeks." Pause there. She just said to my mother, "You're going to die if you don't abort, but I'm sending you home and come back in 2 weeks." And so it's so ridiculous to think, if my mother was really going to die, you wouldn't have sent her home. And it's so it mhm, mhm.
Man, I I'm so grateful for this conversation, and I'm so grateful for your courage in speaking the truth so boldly. I know it's hard not to take it personally when we live in our culture that has been impacted by abortion the way that it has, and it takes a lot of courage and, faith in God to be willing to educate people, Rachel, with even within the church, even within the medical system.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so necessary in both those spaces.
And I'm sure people are realizing this about you. You know what you're talking about, not just from a personal experience standpoint. So, as we kind of end our time together, I just want for you to share, how are you using this personal experience now in a ministry standpoint? You know what you know because you're involved in different pro-life endeavors.
That's a thoughtful question. Yeah. So I'll say, so I'm a part of a few different groups. One one is 40 Days for Life and Sidewalk Advocates for Life, and really just my mother and I, we've co-led a 40 Days for Life campaign for 8 years, and then Sidewalk Advocates a little less than that. And what I love about both these organizations and both these spaces is that they provide a tangible way for someone to literally be used to save a life from abortion. I think about Abby Johnson's statistic. And the statistic that Abby Johnson shares, I think it's 70 or 75% of women who have a no show rate, who never walk into the abortion clinic because just a few people stand outside the abortion clinic. And the whole movement, the whole heart, the whole burden of both of these ministries is to gather the local community, to stand outside the local abortion clinic, to pray, to hold kind signs, to be that peaceful, loving, prayerful presence. And the Lord has just so kindly brought about such an amazing, amazing team for 40 Days for Life and Sidewalk Advocates for Life, of people who we really are all just family. And we stand outside that local abortion clinic at Planned Parenthood in Marietta. We hold kind signs. We reach out to moms. We take them out to coffee. We throw baby showers for them. And we want these mothers to be showered with love. We want these mothers to know the hope in choosing life for their baby. And there are just two stories. One is very encouraging and a life saved, and another shows the power of when someone isn't standing outside of the abortion clinic, which our team, they're always standing outside. But one of them is, and if anybody wants to join our team, you can go to 40daysforlife.com/Marietta. One of them is that my mom and I, we were standing outside the abortion clinic one day. And before a couple leaves, so it's in this big parking lot where they have the abortion clinic, they have a blood bank, an urgent care, and so forth. And so you don't always know when somebody's driving in, where are they going to go? We don't know where they're going to go. Maybe it is blood services, maybe it's the abortion clinic. We don't know. Well, we saw this precious couple when we were standing on the lawn, and they were about to leave the abortion clinic. They were standing at the stop sign, and I ran up to their car and I motioned for them to roll down their window. And I don't recommend this, but I stuck my head in their car door. And I said to them, I said, just are you contemplating abortion? Just kind of, what's the story here? They said they were. I said, and you have when you were outside the abortion clinic, you have like 10 seconds to be able to talk to them. Yeah. And then I said something like, God has a plan for your baby. My team and I, we're here to walk alongside of you. Please just know, just choose life for your baby. God has a plan. And I got their phone number and I stayed in touch with them. And what I think is so powerful is that, my mom and I, we were standing outside that abortion clinic. in late April of 2020, so year of COVID. And this mother, she took my phone number. I stayed in contact with her. It was every single day. It was just, you could tell the spiritual tension within her choosing life. And every single day, one day, she would say, I'm choosing life. The next, no, I'm not. The next, yes, I am. The next, no, I'm not. Literally, it went on from late April to I think early to mid June when she officially chose life for her little girl. And her little girl will be turning 4 in December. And she and her daughters are dear, dear friends of ours, and they're like family. They came over for Thanksgiving last year. I know, I love them. And it says to me that, and we know this, that when we're standing outside the abortion clinic, these women, they're looking for a sign. They are looking for a sign to say, I don't need to abort. I don't need to abort. And I think that what this sweet woman, what this dear friend of ours needed was someone to say, you're not alone. and, and that goes for all the lives saved that God has allowed us to know about. And also I think about something encouraging is I ponder, how many women do we know of that chose life that we don't know about? Maybe they were about to drive into the abortion clinic. They saw our team and they said, nope, not doing it. So I think that there is really there is really always a way for us to be a voice for those babies. And both those ministries provide that vehicle.
Absolutely. And I love, Rachel, that I mean it's very practical, right? You see a woman in need and you listen and you connect her with resources and right, it is sort of that same thing that goes back to your letter at the age of 14. Everybody wants to be seen.
Amen. You so
Every
said it.
Yeah,
You so
everybody
said
wants
it.
to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. That is innate to who we are.
Yes. Yes, yes.
And
Yep.
that's why abortion is such a like a salt on the wound for those of us who know its impact, because we know that abortion doesn't see us, right? It covers us. It keeps the truth about our humanity, of who we are, of the parent-child bond, all of those things. It hides all of those things.
It does. It oh my gosh, it absolutely does. And it just kind of along those lines, it makes me think about one of our team members who she stood outside. And something I love is one of our team members, like our youngest, was like, she was 6 months old. She was with her parents outside the abortion clinic, of course, with her parents. And then the eldest is like in their 80s. And one day, my mother and I, we were standing outside with a dear, dear friend of ours who she chose life. The Lord mightily used my mom in that story for her to choose life, not at the abortion clinic, but when my mother served at a local pregnancy crisis center. But what was so beautiful is that our dear friend Kayla and her daughter Katie, standing outside that abortion clinic, she was holding, I think her daughter Katie was 3 years old at the time, she was holding her daughter. She was able to, in a way, I mean, that was just so supernatural, so amazing. She was able to, just as she called out to those precious moms walking into the abortion clinic, she was able to connect with them. And I mean, and it was just amazing to see that in like a 30-minute time frame, which had never happened before, and I don't even think it still has. In a 30-minute time frame, there were 3 women who immediately came over, talked to our friend Kayla, and 2 of them left the abortion clinic immediately. I mean, immediately. And it goes back to what you said Kayla, in such a beautiful, sweet way, the Lord so mightily used her, as all of our team, to help these mothers be seen, that they were seen, that they were heard. And something I think is so interesting is that the abortion industry likes to make it seem like that somehow they are here to listen to the mothers, to help the mothers, to walk alongside of the mothers. But what our society and just doesn't understand, and also with those who work in the abortion industry that they're deceived by, is realizing the way to walk with these mothers to help them to be seen is to love them and to love their baby, and to recognize the gift that the Lord has, and even if you're not a Christian, but the gift of that baby inside of her womb, and and that to tell a woman, well, just get rid of it. Well, you're not strong enough. What? That's not an empowering message at all. And so I think that what Kayla and Katie, and then what the team that stands outside, what they really provide for these moms is what you said. They are seen, they are heard, they know that they are not alone. And it also says to me that no woman is walking to an abortion clinic, despite the narrative of the world, because she's thinking, I am going to be supported by Planned Parenthood. I am going to be helped. I am going to be like, yes, in some sense, like they kind of have that thought just because, like in their mind that child is a problem. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yet, when I think about, for these women to come talk to total strangers standing outside of an abortion clinic, we kind of look pretty crazy. We're just outside holding our sweet signs. We love you. We care. We can help. Our signs that say loving messages like that. For them to walk over, first, that is the Holy Spirit's prompting and God's mercy and grace that they would come over. But also, period. It also says to me, you can tell these women that they don't want to abort because they are reaching out to total strangers to say maybe they have something that they can help me with, that they can offer for me. And I think that also seeing these women um really just turn to the pro-life movement for help, and turn to people who are standing outside the abortion clinic. It says that, in my mind, in their heart of hearts, they want to choose life. It also says that the narrative that the abortion industry spins is so anti-woman, despite what they claim, because I mean, these young girls are not going to feel empowered by an industry that says you're not strong enough to have your baby. Just what a dismissive mindset toward also the strength that women have, that they can be mothers, they can have careers, they can do it all.
Mm-hmm. And that they are capable enough, and there are resources enough to support them even when they are facing a scary diagnosis or an unknown future for their child.
That's it.
Well, and I just want to thank you again for your courage, for your faith, for what may seem like it's so simple and straightforward, being outside of the clinic, but also is something that many people don't feel like they could do, should do, would do. And so I just thank you for being who you are. And, it's been a joy for me to watch you grow into who God created you to be. And He's not done
You
yet.
are so kind. Well, thank you. That's very sweet of you, coming from you.
If people want to get in touch with you, Rachel, or they have questions about resources, support, 40 Days for Life, what's the easiest way for them to reach you?
I would say 40daysforlife.com/Marietta, just because you can find my email, you can find my phone number, you can find the resources regarding our ministry. And then also, if you have any other questions, maybe it's regarding just in general other work that you can do and being involved in the pro life movement, I'd love to connect anyone.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you again for tuning in for this episode of Life Beyond Abortion with Rachel Guy. I hope you have found it to be informational. I suspect you may have found it challenging, but I also hope you find it encouraging because, as Rachel and her family often say, where there is a heartbeat, there is hope. And as Rachel and I talked about, no one is ever alone in what they are going through, whether it's a prenatal diagnosis, a crisis in pregnancy. Even after a child is born, Rachel and her family are a living testament to the fact that there are always people who will come alongside you and accompany you.
Life Beyond Abortion is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions on the show are those of the host and her guest, and not necessarily those of the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more about Melissa's work at melissaohden.com or by following her on Instagram at melissaohden. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode of Life Beyond Abortion.